You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Roundtable, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and Barack Obama's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
And good morning, Phil Stargell of the Abolitionist Roundtable of Michigan. And we have a very, very exciting, fact-filled program this morning. The news it just won't let go of some of these stories that are in there. But personally, I still think that the biggest program, the biggest story of the year is the football players, because they have really angered a lot of people in this country, and they have done some things that they feel threatens their manhood, but they don't think that it threatens their livelihood. And so I'm just looking at it, and I'm wondering if anybody is going to be able to bring a resolution to this thing that is going to satisfy everybody. I don't think it will. I think the NFL is going to continue a slide into irrelevancy, because they have got to figure out how to get these players into understanding that it's way more, way bigger than what they say, because it was incoherent what they were talking about, and so they settled on the old standby for the Democrat Party, racism. That's what we're doing, and what they're saying is that the owners of the football teams are, because they understand that the fans are threatening their business interests, and they, with great support from me, I believe that's a legitimate concern, because the players they understand that if they have dissension on the team, if they're not united, then there is going to be a big problem in the locker room, and that's going to translate out into the field. But what they don't understand is that there's no reason for this. There's nobody that would demand that they stand to support something that they don't feel that they should support. And I certainly don't think that they should, if they feel that that's what they want to do, they ought to do it. But just remember that they're protesting. There may be a backlash, and they might protest them. And so what they would say is, if you continue to disrespect the national anthem and the American flag, then we won't come in here and pay to see you do it. So what's going to happen? I think that eventually the NFL will say, well, we won't play the national anthem anymore, and demand that our players have to come out and stand at it. That's eventually what's going to happen. Now, I don't know whether or not the fans will accept that. That has to be seen, but I believe that's where we're headed. But anyway, if you'd like to join that conversation, you know that number is 734-822-1600, and we will get to the lines in just 1 minute. But what I want to do is I want to say that the reason why this whole NFL thing blew up is because it's mainly because of President Trump, and nobody can explain that dislike or that visceral hatred for the president better than somebody looking from the outside. And I'm going to explain it. When President Trump came into the front of the heap, there was no concern about him being a racist. And I really said I didn't believe that they would call him a racist because he had so much contact with the Democrat Party and so many people. And so many people thought highly of Donald Trump. I wasn't a Trump fan until the person that I favored in the presidential race dropped out, and that was Scott Walker. I thought that what we need, and still believe what we need, is a person that is dedicated to the Constitution and the Constitution and the rule of law. That's what has to be shown in this country, and we have to get a dedicated education of people in this country to realize that just because you want to obey the law, that doesn't mean that you are a racist. And what happens is when people talk about being a proponent of rule of law rules, everybody wants to assign this racism and white separatism and all of that nonsense to it. So that's why you see these attacks on the Constitution, on the flag, on the rule of law in this country. We believe that all of the law should be subject to special treatment for special groups. And we have to educate our people to understand that that group law in this country is only mob law. It's only what you see all around the world. The United States is unique in the fact that we are a rule of law country. In other countries, they change governments, they change the rules. And that's not something that I want to see in this country, but that's where we are headed if we allow people like Bernie the Socialist Sanders to have as much influence over the next generation as he does. You see that? I mean, he changed the dynamic in the Democrat Party. They've always been socialists. They just never admitted it. They've always been communists. They never would want that to taint their image. But they never, ever said anything derogatory about the communist countries in this country. And we had to fight the Democrats to ever think about having opposition to the communist countries around the world. And the Democrats now are finally showing you their hand. They've always been socialists ever since there was a thing called the Confederate States of America. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the lines. I don't want to go to the break and leave the lines on. So I'm going to go to line one, And we have on line one Bruce from Grosse Pointe. Bruce, you ready?
I sure am, Phil. I'm raring to go. I haven't had my Wheaties yet, but I'm ready to go. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning to you. I haven't heard from you in a while.
Well, I've been kind of busy, work and all that sort of thing, building the best trucks in the world, so it's, it's just another day at the office for me as far as that's concerned. This whole Weinstein thing is, it's really tragic, what's going on, just the corruption and Hollywood and that sort of thing. But, when you have people like Hillary Clinton, who was such a big recipient of his bundling and this type of thing, it's almost, I don't know, it's almost like, what's the word, schadenfreude? And you see, it took her 5 days to say something. Jane Fonda admitted that she had known about this going on for a year but didn't say anything, and now she's so ashamed. That woman, Phil, that woman should have been locked up as soon as she came back from Vietnam all those years ago. But what's going on, Phil, is you just see the depths of the corruption in Hollywood and all the direct that they're putting into the pipeline, to poison the minds of young people and they just go on these political crusades and this type of thing in which they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, all of these people that are coming out talking about, I wish I had said something, they knew and look.
Yep.
I happened to be watching, because I don't watch it very often. I happened to be watching when Seth MacFarlane made that little joke about all of you nominees don't have to act as though you like Harvey Weinstein. That stuck in my mind. I'm saying, man, it's obvious that they're talking about some adventures with I didn't know who he was. I mean, but I said it was obviously they were going back to the old 20s, Fatty Arbuckle and all of those people.
Yeah, well, Phil, this is not, there's still, I guess after all these years, there's still some speculation as to whether Fatty Arbuckle actually did what he did. But,
but regardless of whether he did it or not, he was a notorious womanizer, and he used his position to get his way with the women. So, he just got caught up in his fantasies.
Right, but the casting couch has been there for a long time, and it has to say something about the people who actually were directly involved, all the actresses and even some of the actors too. It has to say something about their moral compass. If they, a lot of them come from, from flyover country and that type of thing. They go out there to Hollywood to make a name for themselves, and this is the kind of stuff they got to go through. And why they don't go to the authorities, why they don't say these types of things, is their art or their bottom line more important than their moral compass?
Well, I got a controversial theory. They keep wondering about this shooter, this Las Vegas shooter. I'm not going to mention his name, but they're saying, well, what's his motive? I can tell you his motive. Mm-hmm. He is a guy that wanted the notoriety. He wanted that being the number one guy, and but he may have, it might be that he was a useful idiot of the Democrat Party. The reason why I say that is that it was a permission given by the Obama administration to put this thing out on the market, to have it manufactured, to okay it, to put it on the market and sell it.
That's the bump stock, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
well, my understanding, Phil, is with the bump stock, I've heard several people, especially like Wayne LaPierre from the NRA, saying that really the bump stocks are really, they're really useless because they don't increase the accuracy of the fire, just the ability to keep firing nonstop.
Yeah.
And I said you could probably have the same effect using a belt loop.
But yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: people have known about this technique for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the Democrat Party, you and I know, has never once wanted anything to do with any kind of a new innovation on technology to improve the firing rate of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't want anything to do with that. For the Obama administration, I'm not saying Obama did it.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that his dirty trick squad, because the Democrat Party specializes in dirty tricks.
Oh, you got that
They
right.
put this in as a ticking time bomb for the next Republican because they knew some idiot was going to use it in this very same fashion.
Mm-hmm.
This idiot may even have had contact with some people in the dirty trick squad of the Obama administration. And that's why I'm saying that he might have been a useful idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? But I'm
Oh, yeah.
telling you that this was a time bomb that they left from their administration for the next administration.
Well, you know, Phil, every time we have a mass shooting, and and these things are horrible, but, you know, they go pass another law. We already have 10,000 or so gun laws on the books right now, and you try to pin these people down and say, well, would this law have stopped this guy, or would this law have stopped that shooting? We have 300 million plus guns in this country. Okay, but we also have, look at all the other objects that can be used as weapons. Knives. How many knives are in the average American household? How many hammers out in the garage? How many cars are on the road? Phil, it all boils down to what's upstairs. If you are intent on using any type of object that can cause harm in the wrong way, then that's considered a weapon. So where are all the people calling for knife bans and hammer bans and brick bans and fist bans and all this sort of thing?
Here's what I want you to think about, and I want everybody that calls in today to think about this, and everybody out there listening. You know, our laws have no meaning. I mean, we got all of these laws on the books, and we keep talking about putting more laws in. The only laws that have any effect, and the only laws that get any action, get anything done, are civil rights laws. The Constitution has almost been nullified, and that's why I've been advocating that we need to take these civil rights laws off the books. We need to take these laws, if they're not effective, take them off the books, because they're the only ones that are getting anything done.
Mm-hmm.
And so the civil rights laws that come with each amendment can be worked without going to a constitutional amendment. And that's what if Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell were worth their salt, you understand, that's what they would be trying to do instead of opposing President Trump. So what we need to do is work on replacing the Congress and the Senate, and given a majority that Barack Obama had, and he couldn't get anything done. And ours would be dedicated to revamping the laws and taking some of these laws off the books. That's what we ought to be working for. So let's start up a group thing and say let's get a working majority that is where we can get around the opposition of the Democrat Party.
Well, you know, I think that with the way that things are going now, there's a lot of rumblings at the grassroots level. I mean, I understand that there's a big push to start getting folks that are going to get up there and start running against some of these people and primary them out at the very least.
Okay. We'll talk about that at one of your meetings. I'll be there.
All right, okay.
Thanks
Phil.
for calling.
Well,
Bruce.
the next meeting is coming up 2 weeks from today. That's October 28th over at the 12 Mile main location of the National Coney Island. So we'll look forward to seeing you there, Phil.
Thanks a lot.
Take care, my friend.
All right, you too. Okay. And we're going to go to line number 2, and that is that Ed from Ypsilanti?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing this morning?
Pretty good. Hey, as far as the NFL is concerned, I don't see that. I think a lot of people see that as a problem, how these guys are behaving and how we're going to treat their behavior.
Yeah.
But I think the real problem with it is that it's a symptom.
Yeah.
It's a symptom of a split in this country.
Yeah.
And I know you're very pro-Constitution.
Yeah.
And you speak of law and everything. And the problem is that the Constitution is the glue that holds this country of so many different cultures and ethnicities and even ideologies into a coherent group that can be managed.
Yeah.
And without people being taught not just the Constitution, but the importance of the Constitution, then all of a sudden we're drifting off into tribes,
Yep. And I directly relate that to the fact that our laws have been allowed to stagnate, and I'm talking about the Constitution, and we've put civil rights legislation in, and that legislation should be upgraded, and it hasn't been, and you can't do it because everybody thinks, well, you're going to turn back the clock and all that. No. What you're doing is right now with DACA, with this particular thing, what they're going to do is they're going to use civil rights to make citizens out of these millions of young people, and they're going to be able to vote and everything else. And guess what they're going to vote for? Who they're going to vote for?
Yeah,
they're going to vote in their interest. And what are we doing now? We're investigating the President of the United States because we think that outside country, Russia, interfered in our election. Well, what could be more interference in our election than a bunch of illegals coming in here, getting citizenship and voting, and then voting the people that oppose them out of office, which they've done in Arizona. You see what they've done there. They put Jan Brewer out of office, and they put her state senator out of office that wrote the legislation. So there has to be some changes made to protect the Constitution, and the biggest change we could do is start cleaning house out of that Congress and that Senate.
Well, and then again, that's part of the problem is that there's we've lost the agreement that the Constitution is the basis for our laws and government. So something like an executive order comes along, even laws that are unconstitutional. That's what the Supreme Court was supposed to determine whether it fit the matrix that's supposed to hold us together, the original agreement, the compact.
Yeah.
But when you've got a president who just emits executive orders, which are workarounds, which are outside of the constitutional process, then what you're saying is, then we don't need to abide by that Constitution anymore. Then there's nothing that holds us together anymore.
Well, guess what? What you originally spoke about the NFL players, and seeing it as a symptom, that is a symptom. That whole law was about the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which was for the freed slaves, right?
Yeah.
Make citizens out of them, but it gave guaranteed rights to the former slaves. Mm-hmm. Well, the civil rights portion of that 14th Amendment was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. If you want to hold on, I'll finish my thought when we come back.
I'll wait.
Folks, if you'd like to join this conversation, that number 734-822-1600, and we'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Roundtable with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Hello, I'm Milt, and this is Logically Speaking Uncensored. Is the United States a nation of laws or a nation of outlaws? The United States Constitution enshrined into words the laws of governance, which fostered the belief that it was a nation of laws where no one, regardless of status, influence, politics, wealth, or elitism, was exempted above the law. Confidence in the impartiality of constitutional laws formed the exceptionalism which made the United States unique. But unrelenting assaults upon the Constitution by anti-American, Christian-hating collectivists, insurrectionists, and treasonous politicians is rapidly transforming the United States into a nation of Democrat Party-approved outlaws. During President Obama's Democrat regime, abandonment of legal laws and Constitution violations were epidemic. Its jurisprudence integrity was implemented. Obama, Hillary Clinton, Lois Lerner of the IRS, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and outlaw officials who support sanctuary enclaves for illegal immigrants would be indicted as criminals. However, as protected elites, they set themselves above the law. One of President Obama's most flagrant unlawful violation was his executive order called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, known as DACA, which is a backdoor scheme to grant illegal immigrant offsprings de facto amnesty. The dictionary defined one who settled on property without right or title of ownership as a squatter. Squatting is unlawful and a crime, and no matter the length of occupancy, a squatter cannot convey or transfer that which they don't own. Therefore, every DACA and development relief and education for alien minors, commonly called dreamers, if they are illegal, by definition are squatters. During Hurricane Irma, I saw a video of some people in Florida stealing and looting merchandise from a store. According to the law, their actions were unacceptable crimes, and they were outlaws, subject to adjudication. But how can justice be served if another crime, illegal immigration, is promoted as acceptable without adjudication? But for illegal immigration apparatchiks in their zeal to legitimize and proselytize illegal immigrant squatters as future Democrat voters are destroying the United States as a nation of laws and equal justice. If a sovereign nation cannot deport or expel outlaws, then its borders will be open to lawlessness. If a sovereign nation cannot deport or expel illegal immigrants, such as DACA or Dreamers, then every incarcerated criminal under equal justice should be released. As the nation moves closer to the crossroads of civility or incivility, Americans must choose being a nation of laws or a nation of outlaws, where mayhem, beatings, murder, and violence is committed without fear of retributions. However, if deportations are too severe, then illegal immigrant squatters should be required to register their residency so the nation will know what, where, and who is here. I am Milt, Logically Speaking Uncensored, saying, think about it.
And that is Milt Harris. Wow, he hit a home run again. That is right on message. And so we get back to the lines. Ed, I'm sure you were listening. That's talk right about what we're talking about here.
That's what I was thinking. I can hang up now? What I wanted to make the point was that them being, the NFL, let's say, just being a symptom, is that it's not just, oh, they're going to protest. There is Well, let me tell you a story that predicated my call on you. I was in an office today. I was doing some programming, and a trucker went in and talked to the owner of the company, a friend of mine, and they're having a conversation about Trump. And this guy says something about, oh, Trump shouldn't be playing golf. He's just playing golf, and people are starving in Puerto Rico, and he's not down there doing anything. And so I went in and started having a conversation about him with him about, well, what are you doing here if something needs to be done? He said, well, I'm driving a truck. I need to drive. It's my job. He says, why aren't you here? Why aren't you there? And I said, well, I've got a job too. I'm doing my job. And the point is that Trump is doing his job. His job isn't being in Puerto Rico. His job is to be managing from Washington, D.C.,
right,
everybody that works for him, right?
Right.
Well, then this argument, it became an argument, escalated to where this guy basically said, I hate the USA.
Yeah.
And I said, whoa, wait a minute. He said, no, I hate, and he used an expletive. And I said, whoa, now you got a real problem with me, buddy. I'm a veteran. He said, I'm a veteran too. I'm a veteran too. I fought in Europe. I mean, I was in Europe. I was an MP. I was in the Army. I'm a veteran. And I'm thinking, holy cow, what have we come to here?
Yeah.
This guy is walking the streets like a normal human being,
yeah,
and he hates the USA and everything it stands for.
Yeah, you know, and I think that people have written me letters and saying that I'm blame the Democrats for everything. Well, I'm blamed for everything, but I just about everything, because what they do is they have a personal philosophy of the Saul Alinsky thing, that communist idea of using all techniques of propaganda to get their point across, and they have done what they talk about picturing it and getting pinpointing the target and all of that, targeting, pinpointing, and all of that. They've done it to Trump, and I'm getting ready when I get off the phones. I'm gonna read an op-ed by a professor that says Trump is a textbook racist. And this is from the moment that he's been in office. They have said that he is a textbook racist, and the professors and the media have compounded this thing. And you got people like our football millionaires out there talking about they're on the plantation. I mean, let's be realistic here. But listen, Ed, I really appreciate you calling this morning and giving us that story, because I've heard that same type of scenario daily in my life for the last 50 years. I've had some close to that from people that I know, and boy, it's scary, because we are reaching a point where we are almost at the point of no return. And we are going to go to line 3 and Gary from Hazel Park. Good morning, Gary.
Hey, brother. Good morning. I think the NFL should take a page out of history. All you got to do is go back to, I think it was the late 50s or the early 60s, when the height of Beatlemania, and John Lennon said something stupid, which was that he was equal to or close to Jesus, remember?
Yeah.
And the whole world went crazy, and they decided to ban the Beatles. There were riots, and people burned all their stuff because John Lennon elevated the Beatles above their station.
Yes.
Well, the NFL's doing exactly the same thing. They're elevating themselves above America, and America's not going to stand for it. So they should really look back and see what they did to the Beatles. These guys were famous. They were huge. They were the biggest thing on the planet for those years, right? But they turned on them in an instant. And this is what's happening to the NFL. If they would just realize that they're not above the nation, they're not above patriotism, they get along a lot better.
Well, I blame the very people that are part of this, the NFL, the players. Once they get to the point where they are, they feel that they can say what they want to say, they do it. They care nothing about whether or not what they're saying is the truth. they have made a big thing about Donald Trump saying, get that SOB out of here.
Yeah.
They say that he called the players in the NFL a SOB, and that is not true. He specifically said that the owners should do what they have the right to do, and that is tell that SOB to get out of here. Whoever is standing on the sidelines or sitting on the sidelines or laying down on the sidelines while the anthem is playing. That's what he said. He said nothing about the other players. The players took it to mean that he said, called them SOBs, and that's when they started their protests, and that's when Jerry Jones came out and sided with the players. And then he realized that was the bad move, because what's going to happen is that they got him involved in order to show up the president.
Well, they do that all the time. They did it down in Charlottesville when he said that there were good people on each side.
Yes.
And then they started saying they were good Nazis. And he didn't say that at all. And even with the Billy Bush tape, he didn't say he did that.
No.
He said they let you do that.
They let you do it because you have
and
that status that they are trying to achieve. And this is what they do. This is what the Democrats do. They are liars. And they put everything in a context that makes whoever they have targeted, they make him look like the worst person on the face of the earth on that particular subject on that day. And that's what they do. And we have to, and our schools have sidestepped this. You know, we ought to sue the schools for malpractice for allowing these kind of things to continue to happen, because these journalism schools that turn out these journalists that report the news in such a biased fashion, they ought to be called out. They're talking about Harvey Weinstein. Well, what about all of these lying reporters that report these kind of things to reinforce their position, that their pre-existing condition of being biased toward the Democrat Party?
Well, it goes back to what you were saying a little bit ago about the communists. The communists have infiltrated many of our institutions,
yes,
including our education system and the press.
Yes.
So the communists are everywhere. So if until we decide to fight that problem, we're lost, because we really have to redo the education system and the media. The media, we have to shut them down. And I know that sounds barbaric. Of course it does. But when they become the enemy of America, then you have to do something about it.
Yes, and they definitely are the enemy of America. And I'm going to, I'm just about, Gary, thanks a lot for your call this morning. And call in, you know, and check out the 2 o'clock show, too. Have you called in on that show? Oh, he's gone. But anyway, we're going to go to this article that it's an op-ed in the New York, the L.A. Times, and real quickly, I think I can get through this. It says civil rights advocates, social scientists, and regular citizens have all called out President Trump as a racist in recent weeks. Now, the president's supporters have countered with some stories about blacks and Latinos he has hired or befriended, and with personal testimonies. Things like, I've known Donald Trump for many years. He doesn't have a racist bone in his body. That's not going to get it. You know, we have got to get out there and say we're not going to tolerate people calling the president of the United States a racist and a white supremacist, because obviously people don't know what racist and white supremacists did to people in this country, not only black people, but white Republicans. So let's not forget this. And people that are not in the Democrat Party, they ought to be saying, we're not going to tolerate you calling these kind of names, and then when anybody says anything in disagreement, you want to call us racist and white supremacists. That's got to stop. And so this professor, his name is Jay Pearson. He says, as a professor who researches and teaches courses on health effects of race, racism, and inequality, I can assure you that the president's defenders are wrong. Trump is a racist. What he says and does meets the scholarly definition of the term. Broadly speaking, a racist combines negative prejudicial biases with sufficient power to leverage action against targeted groups. Trump's words and behaviors demonstrate considerable prejudicial bias, and as President of the United States, arguably the most powerful office in the contemporary world, he has indeed leveraged action against various groups. See, this is a bunch of gobbledygook as far as I'm concerned, but this is what all of these groups like Black Lives Matter and Wall Street, what do they call it? Something about Wall Street. All of these groups use these terms, throw these terms around about who is racist and why they're racist, and the group that they're defending or the group that they're part of, they say, well, we can't be racist because we don't have the power to do anything to affect the lives of other people. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense. But anyway, I'm going to go on. Racism is predicated on belief in the scientifically discredited concept of biological race. Skin color simply has no correlation with significant inherent distinctions among human beings. Another bunch of gobbledygook. Race in the past and now has led to notions of a natural hierarchy among various populations in the United States. It was used to justify stealing labor from black Africans through slavery and stealing land from red Native Americans through forced relocation and genocide. Well, let me tell you this. If you can't defend your borders, in the case of the red races, the red, what do they call them? The red race, the Indians, Native Americans. If you can't defend your land, your culture, then somebody will take it. And that's what's absolutely happening in the United States of America. We are not defending our borders, and consequently we are being taken over by a communist horde that will turn this country into a communist utopia. As far back as colonial days, Northwestern European immigrants placed themselves at the pinnacle of the pecking order while relegating populations of color and other ethnic groups to inferior positions. False perceptions of inherent differences in traits such as intelligence or work ethic have been systematically associated with geographic origin, ancestry, skin color, or some combination of the three. In other words, white people have gone all over the world and just raped and pillaged and just forced their self on everybody in the world, except the fact that no other country on the face of this earth right today has the type of government that we have in this country, which we are losing at a very fast pace every day, because they want to turn this into a socialized America, and they're doing everything they can to do it. And then, then lastly, I'm going to get into those supposed differences have justified restricting some groups' access to resources and exposing them all to all manner of risks in every sphere of life: cultural, educational, political, and economic. Okay, scholars break racism into multiple categories. Number one, structural racism, assigning social value to human populations contingent on misperceptions of inherent differences, symbolic racism. Number two, rhetoric that delegitimizes others. Again, a bunch of gobbledygook. Institutional racism, incorporating and formalizing misperceptions of differences in society through public policy. And I want to say about it, this is where we go, because they are in the NFL, the players are saying that because of institutional racism, we are allowing policemen to commit genocide on young black males. Well, you know, let's just say that that's true. I think you picked the wrong category to try to make it out that that you can commit genocide. I mean, there's 50 black Americans being killed by police in a given year, 50 to 80, maybe in a bad year 100. I don't think I've ever heard of being 100, but that's what they say. So it would take a long time to wipe out a whole race. What about the whole idea of, let's say abortion? And when the numbers come in on that, you find out that there is an appalling number of abortions being committed. The Black Lives Matter, the NFL players, have no credibility with me as long as they turn their eye and turn their back on the fact that we are committing black abortions at an outrageous rate. I got the numbers here, and I've read them before, and I'm going to read them again, but I ain't got time to go through that, because I want to finish this. But what I'm saying to you is that the NFL players, if you want to stop any kind of reduction in populations of black Americans, stop the abortion. Go tell your brothers and your sisters that that's what they should be concentrating on if they want to cut down on the number of deaths in this country. Then secondly, let's go to Chicago and Detroit, Boston, Baltimore, and tell these young kids to stop killing each other. And then maybe you have some credibility with these fans that are about to take away your livelihood, because if you keep disrespecting that flag out there, you are going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, and that's the NFL. And it seems to me that somebody ought to be looking and telling people that you really don't have a beef with that flag. You got a beef with the Democrat Party. And I'm going to finish out and put the last part of this here. Let's see. Interpersonal racism, acting on such misperceptions in direct or face-to-face interactions. Number 5 is insidious racism, unconscious belief in and perpetuation of these phenomena. Internalized racism, racism among victimized populations accepting and manifesting negative portrayal. All of this is a bunch of gobbledygook. There's only been one time in this country that there's ever been institutional racism in this country, and it was only in a portion, the same portion of the country that allowed slavery. The Confederate States, the former Confederate States, are the only place that there ever existed racism and institutionalized racism. And we abolished that with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. So, you know, young people in the NFL, go pick up a history book and learn something. See you next week, folks. The Abolitionist Roundtable invites the WAAM TALK1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and